you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, May 14th, 2021. On this episode, the NFL schedule release. We didn't get a chance to talk about it yesterday. Casey's with us today. All three of us are here. Bossy Vada Party, Charlie O, Casey Freela, powered by Stables Media. Thanks to everybody joining us on Facebook and on our YouTube channel as well. If you missed any of the live broadcasts, especially the pig segment, that's what we're here for. Download and subscribe on Apple, iHeart, Google, SoundCloud, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. And download and look for the Make the Money and Run symbol and icon, and download, subscribe, rate, and review. Hit us up on email, mtmarpodcast@gmail.com, and also on all the social media outlets. Our Twitter handle is mtmarpodcast, at mtmarpodcast on Twitter. All right, gentlemen, how are you? Another Friday in the books here, getting close to it, halfway through the day, getting ready for a full weekend of sports, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. Got the lucky Shamrock hat on. This is now the official Friday show hat. So we're gonna wear this every Friday. Hopefully, it'll bring everybody luck. Starting with me.
Let's start marketing that hat. Casey, what's up? How are you?
I'm doing good. I knew we were going to talk a little bit about the NFL, and it's funny. I was actually talking with my mom last night. We started talking about sports. She's telling me how she doesn't really care about baseball, this and that. And I start talking football, and this lady and I just went talking for 45 minutes about the strengths of the NFC West. I mean, she is dialed in as a 49ers fan, and I told her, I think you should be very excited with your strength of schedule. There's no league on earth that does a better job of generating off-season talk. It's all I want to talk about. Let's just talk about pro football. Who is your second defensive end? And what do you think about that move at special teams with that coordinator? How's that going to change the ability to make extra points? These are the things that go on in the mind of men, ladies. We don't really think all that weird, nefarious stuff you think we're thinking. We're probably thinking about sports.
No doubt about it. Well, very interesting. This is how you can reach us Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays right here at 1:15 Pacific time, as we said, anywhere on Facebook and YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast downloaded. All right, let's get started with the NFL schedule release. We didn't really have a chance to talk about it. Casey wasn't with us yesterday. Casey's probably got it all dissected, or his mom's got it all dissected right now. The NFL schedule release for 2021. Very interesting. As I was perusing through it this morning, I didn't get a chance to look at it. Obviously, I looked at the Bears schedule. I looked at the NFC West schedule. There are 17 games this year in the season. So, and with all due respect to Casey, the joke was I heard on radio that there's no way the Cowboys will end up going 8-8 this year again. So they'll be. That's the first time trying it on air live. So there you go, Casey. So if you didn't like it, then you can tell me about it live on the air later. But 17 games this year, and so the regular schedule is still the same. You play your division opponent 6 times. You play one other division in your conference 4 times, and then where you finished last year, that placed team is your opponent for the other games. And then the 17th game is your opposite directional opponent of your interconference game. In other words, the NFC West is playing the AFC South, and so the opposite direction of South is North. And so that's how the Cincinnati Bengals ended up on the San Francisco 49ers schedule list. So there you go. There's a little knowledge there for you. 49ers will have 8 games at home, 9 on the road, and then they'll get 9 games at home and 8 on the road next year until they figure out that it's the stupidest thing ever, and they'll go to 18 games at some point and knock the preseason down to 3 games with whatever collective bargaining agreement that DeMaurice Smith or whoever's running the crappy players union will agree to in that sense. So, we're probably not going to get credentialed if I keep ripping the NFL union for not.
No, it's okay. It's okay. The players union has nothing to do with credentials.
That's a good point. All right. So thoughts, Casey. I'll start off with you. You're in tune with the NFL schedule release. What'd you think, and who interests you, and from the standpoint of what schedules look interesting?
Well, you already got me a buzz thinking about that revenue sharing as far as who gets the 9th game at home this year, 9th game at home next year. I think it's really an angle by the NFL to eventually just say, look, every team in this league has to go play in Mexico or London or somewhere on planet Earth that isn't America so they can continue to develop their international flavor. But if you're an owner, you got to be thrilled to get that extra gate, that extra cash, all those beers sold, hot dogs. Plus, as they're calling it, the most important season in the history of pro football, as we were able to return to some normalcy, at least at most venues. Even here in California, it looks like apparently the virus just died and went away because we're opening everything up, and I guess we're going to have packed stands before you know it, which segues to those 49ers who I was talking about last night and looking at the NFC West. They're kind of right in the middle as far as strength of schedule versus BetMGM win totals. They're at 19th with their strength of schedule. I think the NFC West is going to be the most intriguing division in football. They're going to beat the crap out of each other. and still end up with 3 playoff qualifiers, in my opinion, just early on looking at the way things stack up. I love it. I love everything that they've done with it. I love that they're going to have a big party down in Tampa to get things going in week 1. And why not bring in the Dallas Cowboys? You want eyeballs on the screen? You bring the Dallas Cowboys down there with Dak Prescott against Tom Brady. They've only played each other once in their careers before. It was actually a dud of a game that the Patriots won 13-9 a couple of years ago. So I'm a fan of that. Obviously, the milestone game is going to be week 4 when the Bucs head up to New England. And I think the NFL did them a little favor, guys, because they didn't make them go up there in like December. They're like, no, it's week 4. They'll probably still be sunny out. You want to snow on the ground. And Tom Brady, if he sticks to his career averages, could be setting the all-time passing yards record in that very contest, which, by the way, tickets are going for $1,500 to get into the nosebleeds already. So they found a way to generate interest across the league. I think if you're a fan of teams that have a really rough schedule that didn't have a good year last year, Steelers, Raiders, Lions, Bengals, Texans, I'm not looking for much upward mobility out of those franchises. Vasu, your team has become much more intriguing. I'll toss it to you. You can throw the ball around here a little bit, because I've gained a lot more respect for Justin Fields, learning about this young man and his work ethic. He seems a little bit different. This is the kind of guy that is a football nerd, and I say that in the most complimentary way possible. He's going to be right out there challenging Dalton to get under center. And that division, it's top heavy, obviously, with the Packers, but who knows if Aaron Rodgers is even going to be in the division. So if you're a Bears fan, you got to be feeling pretty good. You don't love the strength of schedule there as the 6th toughest, but a team like that, I'm sure you're so much more interested, right? Because you and I were joking about it a couple of weeks ago. Just, I don't even care what the Bears are doing this offseason because they're not going to make any move. And all of a sudden you get Justin Field, the whole thing changes. The whole attitude changes there.
There's no doubt about it, Casey. The Chicago Bears, right now, they're plus 160. After the draft, they went to plus 160 to make the playoffs or not. And then I think it was minus 300 to not make the playoffs. And it will be interesting to see what happens in terms of what Aaron Rodgers does. Obviously, the Vikings and the Lions are still there. Jared Goff, they've got a little enthusiasm in Detroit right now, very little enthusiasm in Detroit right now. And then Minnesota, I mean, every year there's one half to one and one half to the other. The bash Kirk Cousins for playing effective football for like 8 weeks, and then the other 8 weeks get the backup quarterback in, whoever that is from Minnesota. So it's just a matter of what's going on. I like the way the Bears have looked as far as Justin Fields and what they did in the draft. They need offensive linemen. They've needed that for years. I mean, Trubisky held the ball on too long, but a lot of that is also due to the fact that his receivers weren't getting open. They've got receivers now in the draft, and hopefully they'll get a couple of free agents. Remember, the free agency period just started. This is not the end. The draft is not the end, and here we go, week 1. This is all happenstance based on the fact that it's going to be an interesting way to go about figuring out how to get these teams going and get these. And one other thing I wanted to mention before we talk about individual divisions here for a little bit. We're only going to spend a few minutes on it because it's May 13th. There's not really a reason to go into it right now, but we'll do it anyway. But the schedule release, I give the NFL credit. The one thing that they do is they do know how to market. The schedule release is a 2-day event now. Week 1 comes out on Tuesday. The rest of them comes out on Wednesday. The draft is a big parade and a big party in Cleveland this year, like it was in the past. And then the opening weekend with the Thursday night game. Now the world champion Buccaneers will be there, and they got the musical acts, and it's a 2-hour NBC pregame show and all this other stuff. So the NFL gets kudos for all the marketing that they do. But let me ask you guys this from that standpoint. The marketing of it and the way that the NFL goes about this in terms of setting this whole thing up is that I think it's good. I guess it's still good. Everybody watches it, but from the standpoint of the schedule release, the NFC West, the AFC East, to me, are the 2 divisions that are going to be very interesting from the standpoint of who's going to win the AFC East. And obviously, the Buccaneers, they knew when Tom Brady possibly was going to break that record. They've got numbers people in there, and they knew that by the 4th game, he was going to probably break that record, and so they scheduled New England to be the 4th game. I don't think that's any coincidence that week 4 that's New England hosting Tampa Bay and Tom Brady coming into play as former coach. And then talk about the divisions, and also I'll start off with Charlie on this. I love Cynthia Freeland. Not only is she good on the eyes, but she's also very smart from the standpoint of her Wharton business background, her predictive modeling on the stock market industry, and then moving into sports on ESPN and into the NFL Network now. She had it all broken down through her models about the 49ers winning the NFC West, the Packers penning Aaron Rodgers winning the NFC North, et cetera, et cetera. And then you said, Charlie, Pittsburgh has the toughest schedule coming into this year based on last year's record. So why don't you take it from there and go with however direction you want?
Well, first of all, Casey, I want you to know that even though Vasu is saying that the Cowboys aren't going to go 8-8, I did see this morning that William Hill has them at 9.5 on the over and under. So it's not as dire as he wants to make it to be. So there you go. It's a little better than what he wants to make it. But yeah, first of all, on the NFL and their marketing, they have decided to become the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and they are not going to stop. One of the things that they did in this new schedule, and one of our commentators, the station that I produce for is an ESPN radio station, and one of our commentators pointed out yesterday is that the NBA has held sacred Christmas Day. They have owned it. And in this new schedule, the NFL has not one, but 2 games scheduled for Christmas Day. So they're taking no prisoners now. They're saying we own sports. And the other thing that they know that they do is not only do they own sports, they own sports gambling. So they're saying, look, we're just taking it. We're going for it. That's why they do 2 days for release of schedule, everything else, because they know everybody who loves to wager on sports, they're all sitting around like Pavlov's dog. They ring the bell and everybody's like, because we're waiting for that stuff to come out and it's ready to go. I mean, why should I know that Pittsburgh has the toughest schedule in the NFL? Because I've been sitting here waiting to find out who's got the best schedule. I mean, it was amazing, guys, that I already know that game 17 being added has totally upset the strength of schedule in the NFL. I mean, there were teams that absolutely had easy schedules that dropped way down into tougher schedules just because of that one game. It is amazing how that has upset the strength of schedule in this thing. So if you are a wagerer, one thing you need to start doing right now is you need to start looking at the strength of schedules, because game 17 has upset the apple cart in the way things are going to go this season in the NFL. So I'm very serious. Even though we aren't looking until September for kickoffs, you need to start looking at strength of schedule right now, because everything just went upside down with game 17.
Casey?
I'd agree. I think that it really does. But I'll throw out the 2 preseason games. Give me an extra football game for the fans. I mean, we're greedy. We want all the football we can get, so we love it. I already understand the players' complaints, and if it was my body on the line, I wouldn't want an extra regular season game. I mean, look, guys, I'm about to turn 44 years old. This has been life, 16-game schedule the entire time I've been on planet Earth, and now we're about to have a monumental shift. You wonder about how's it going to affect late season, the ability to sit your guys like, the Chiefs were able to do a couple of years ago in the final games, get them healthy for the playoffs, or are you going to be just battling because there's going to be such a slim margin in each division and each playoff that you have to just basically get all your dogs out there for the entire year? That plays into it quite a bit. To another point you made earlier, Chuck, talking about how the NFL and gambling are taking over. One team we're going to want to watch is basically Empower Field in Denver, because don't forget, they've got 3 gambling sponsors signed on with them. FanDuel has the stadium signage. BetMGM actually has a sports betting lounge. So I think really in the future, guys like us who would typically sit there and really pay attention to the game might be more inclined to be sitting there like, I can literally bet on the next play as I sit in here enjoying a cold beer in a beautiful stadium. And I think that's just going to take over the entire NFL as gambling continues to propel forward. Taking a look at early win totals, I say you print out one sheet, Charlie and Vasu, that has strength of schedule, another sheet that has the win totals. Look at the way that they're slanting the money. For example, the Jets over under 6. But if you want to bet that over, you got to lay $1.30. So, I mean, it's kind of like baseball where you got to play with the numbers a little bit to make sure you're getting the best value. I know folks are curious. The highest win total projection, of course, is the Kansas City Chiefs at 12. And I think that's a good number for them. By the way, shaded to the over at -130. Buccaneers 11.5. Packers at 11. Do not touch that until we know where Aaron Rodgers is going to be living. Then you've got the Ravens at 11, a team that I would dare call a dark horse, I think the Ravens are a sleeping beast that had an off season last year, and they are going to storm out this year if they can get their offensive line cohesive. I could ramble on and on about this for hours, but again, make sure you're getting the best number. Make sure that you're looking at the actual strength of schedule and play it out in your mind. Look into like week 13, 14, 15. Where does my team's bye week fit into this? How healthy are they going to be down the home stretch? There's a million factors that go into it, and that's why it's easily the number one bet sport on the board, Vasu.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The NFL schedule release comes out, the big production that it had. Chris Myers of Fox Sports sent me an Instagram note saying that he said that the first time that all 22 starters have returned because of this year's Tampa Bay Buccaneers was the 1977 Oakland Raiders. So I tweeted back at him, or I sent him a note saying something to the effect of, well, let's just cancel the season. Let's figure out where to set the parade up for Tampa Bay and get the futures bet on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. But he did tweet back something serious. He said, if you want to see a team that's probably going to have a lot more wins than a lot of people think are going to be those Los Angeles Chargers. He really likes the Chargers, and I'm inclined to believe somebody that watches the NFL quite a bit and works the games might have a pretty good idea of that, considering he also lives in Los Angeles as well, too. He and Rondé Barber, by the way, a little promotion, are going to do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers preseason games this year. That's one of the crews for Fox coming up this year. All right, the NFL schedule release, May 13th, 2021. It's all going to be good. Do what Casey said, get the strength of schedules, get the future bets on the over-unders and wins, division winners, conference winners, et cetera, all the way up to the Super Bowl, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. All right, we'll go into basketball now. Let's take 30 seconds. We'll go into the NBA. We'll get all the playoff seating set up, and we'll get going with this. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast, a full house today with Vasu, Charlie, and Casey. Back in 30. Welcome back to the show. Vasu, Charlie, and Casey here with you on the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, May 13th. Thanks on Facebook and YouTube. Robbie, appreciate the comments as always. Thanks for listening. Give us your thoughts on the NFL schedule release or anything you got in sports. That goes for everybody as well, too. And if you missed any of it, download anywhere you get your podcast, subscribe, reach out to us anywhere you can. All right, I'm going to put the NBA lines up here for tonight. Not really a lot from a standpoint of what's left for the playoff structure. The Washington Wizards' magic number is still 1. They've got a 9-point favorite over the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight, 226.5. Denver and the Clippers, I think, are still fighting out for the 3rd and 4th spot. 8.5 at Detroit. Oh, those Detroit Pistons, Casey. We talk about them all the time. They come back to bite everybody. 8.5 on the road for the Denver Nuggets, 216. Utah, can't figure out Utah right now. I know they had a 5-game winning streak. The Warriors kind of dumped them a little bit, and I think they had one other game before this, but I don't remember. But they're 14.5 at Oklahoma City, and based on recent trending topics of Oklahoma City, this should be about a 25 to 30 point game for the Utah Jazz. So 14.5 might be cheap, 221.5. Philadelphia 76ers only one game up now after getting throttled by Miami last night. One of my favorite picks last night was the Heat at -2.5. 14, 213.5. Dallas 14 over Toronto. They're still playing out. The 5, 6, and 7, 219.5. Toronto eliminated. Golden State only -1 against New Orleans. Williamson's out. I'm kind of curious about that because I want to know if they're going to play Curry. They're in the play-on series. I don't know if they can catch 7 or 8. If they're 8th right now, I believe. I don't know if they lose, they're going to go down to 9 or whatever the case is. But some of the NBA notes that we're talking about as we look at some of the notes here. Phoenix got a big win last night. They didn't cover. They only won by 1. Portland looked really good. A back-to-back scenario. I thought they were not going to be able to come back against Utah. We talked about one game back at Utah. Mavs, Blazers, and Lakers are going to play for that 5th and 6th seed right now, and the losers will end up in the play-in tournament. And right now, the Blazers and Lakers are tied in the loss column. Lakers a half game back officially in the play-in scenario. Heat hammered the Sixers. Philadelphia only up by 1 on Brooklyn. 2 games left. The 4 to 6 seeds are very interesting. Charlie and I talked about this yesterday, Casey, to be determined. Atlanta, Miami, New York all have 31 losses. The 6th seed gets the 3 seed. The 4th seed will get the 5th seed in the playoffs. And that's a big difference between Brooklyn and Milwaukee versus Atlanta and New York and Miami in the first round of the playoffs, Casey.
Yeah, it does still matter, and this is what Adam Silver wanted, and kudos to him. This whole season's gone pretty darn well, in my opinion. I mean, we've had a little bit of COVID issues, but not perhaps as bad as we thought. And you're right, the games on paper tonight are not that intriguing, but the overall, kind of breadth of what's happening does matter because the regular season is going to end on Sunday. Let me start by congratulating the worst franchise in the NBA, the Sacramento Kings, for missing the playoffs for the 15th straight year. That ties an all-time record, and I'll look forward to them breaking it next year. Let's go Phoenix Suns. Okay, take my fan hat off now. Let's look at the West, guys. So I want to get your thoughts on this, Chuck. I mean, the Blazers maybe jobbed a little bit. Devin Booker cuts towards the basket, gets fouled by Norman Powell with 4 seconds left last night. I've watched that play from freaking 20 angles. I cannot find a foul. The referees can always find a foul, but they do. So anyway, Booker goes on. He hits the 2 free throws, and Phoenix ends up picking up the win because McCollum couldn't bomb one in. But the bottom line is Portland now, if the Lakers win out, so the Lakers got to go Indiana and New Orleans. Portland has to defeat Denver on Sunday to avoid the play-in tournament. So we've got kind of an update here in the 5, 6, 7. Vasu mentioned it. Mavs are 41-29. Blazers are 41-30. Then the Lakers are 40-30. And let's just lay this out. Stick with me. The Mavericks will avoid the play-in tournament with 1 win and clinch 5th with 2 wins or a win and a Blazers loss. This is what's so cool about this, Charlie, is that we are here with literally 48 hours left in the season, and there's still a huge thing at stake here because you do not want to be in that play-in game. You don't want to be playing Steph Curry to try and get into the playoffs. I don't want that if I'm a fan. So I think the NBA has done a wonderful job generating some intrigue for the weekend.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. And I keep hearing people saying, let's get rid of this play-in. I'm going, are you out of your minds? We haven't had a final weekend that's been this exciting in the NBA in years. I am so excited about it. They're making these people play basketball right up to the end of the season. I'm really jacked up about it. The Indiana Lakers game tonight is significant because Indiana would like to jump out of that 8th spot so they don't have to win back-to-back games in order to get in. So it's important to them. The Lakers, of course, obviously would like to jump out of that 7th spot. But the intrigue there is that right now, LeBron is going to be a game time decision. He did practice, but he is questionable at this point. And of course, the thing is, what do you do with LeBron? Do you put him in there? Do you take a chance to jump up, or do you take a chance and get him hurt so that he's not ready in that first round of the playoffs? Those are intriguing questions, especially about age. Now, I don't get me wrong when I say this. I don't think LeBron's career's over. That all those things, people that say that stuff, that's just plain stupid. Those are analysts who have no clue as to what they're talking about. You're talking about a guy who spends $1 million a year on his body. His career is not over. But right now, he's got some tweaky injuries that are plaguing him right now. So you've got a lot of decision making there, right, going on. The team that I think right now that is in trouble is Portland, because Portland does not want to fall out into that playoff situation, because you're absolutely right. The team that they most likely would have to face is the Warriors, and I don't think they want to have to face the Warriors.
Let me update the odds here a little bit because LeBron, unsure if they're going to play with Indiana, did not have the schedule when I got the lines up and I posted these. Now the Clippers are an 8-point favorite at Houston. That game was not on earlier. The Memphis Grizzlies, who I don't have up here, are minus 3.5 over Sacramento, 224. Definitely check and see if who's playing in that game because Memphis is in. Sacramento's, Casey said, is eliminated right now, so they are set from 7 to 10 in that scenario. And now the Warriors and Pelicans game is off the board, according to what I have here on my site. There is no Warriors and Pelicans game on here. So it's a very fluid situation, as somebody once said in news, and we'll just keep it that way with the NBA. But the NBA notes is that what are we looking at this weekend in terms of games, you guys? You just laid a little bit out, but what's gonna grab your eyeballs, Charlie, on Saturday and Sunday, or tonight, for that matter?
You know what? I haven't even looked at Saturday and Sunday, to be honest with you. Let me go to Saturday and see what's happening. You got more Lakers in Indiana on Saturday, so that's there. Chicago, Brooklyn. That could be interesting if Chicago is still in it at that point. Charlotte and the Knicks, that could be a bit of a preview. It's hard to know because if everything gets settled out, then we're going to see second unit teams. So, that's going to be interesting. Phoenix, San Antonio, Probably not much there. Boston, Minnesota. We can congratulate A-Rod. He gets dumped by J-Lo, so he goes out and instead of buying a Corvette, he buys an NBA team. And then you've got Miami and Milwaukee, and that's probably not going to mean much. And let's see, is there anything on Sunday that's going to mean anything?
I'm interested in Phoenix and Utah. Phoenix playing Utah. Phoenix, Utah for the top seeds. Brooklyn and Philadelphia.
Yeah,
we talked about
that'll mean something. So there you go there. And Utah plays Sacramento, so that give that game to Utah. That'll be done. So in Phoenix and San Antonio, you got to think that would be a Phoenix game. So the top seed, they're still on the line, so that'll be interesting.
Casey, before you go to the games, let me ask you real quick here. What do you think about Phoenix, Utah, and Brooklyn and Philadelphia? I guess Milwaukee's still in it technically in terms of the top seed. The way Philadelphia looked last night, I didn't see the game. I don't know if Embiid player, they had their players in there, but these top two spots are still interesting to me in the West and East, and I think that's going to make very interesting basketball on the weekend. I was noticing times, and you had mentioned it earlier in the week, about everybody playing basically at the same time, so that there's no jaking or no side-sidling on the players in the games itself, just like Major League Baseball and soccer does every year at the end of the year, Casey.
It's a great play, and it's going to have a lot of people probably at the very least split screening. If you're a baseball and basketball fan like we are, I'm definitely be watching a lot of hoop this weekend. I can't really figure out, why the Sixers didn't play a little better. I mean, that's a pretty convincing win for the Heat, 106-94 last night. But again, I've talked about the Sixers all season long. They're the only team I'm putting money on when the playoffs begin. I'm betting them to win the Eastern Conference, not win the whole thing, but I do think that they can get it done. Now, James Harden comes out and starts talking about how he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it's hard to argue with that because he really is one of the greatest things since sliced bread was invented. So I know the Nets have the potential to get out there and score and light up the scoreboard. And as we've talked about ad infinitum, are they going to play defense in enough stretches to have a chance to actually win the Eastern Conference? And if I'm the Bucks, I'll play that disrespect card. Nobody's really been talking about them that much. It's always Brooklyn, Philly, Brooklyn, Philly, Brooklyn, Philly. Well, they've still got one of the 5 best players on planet Earth. And they've got a team that now has another year together building chemistry. Why can't they make a run from the 3-hole? I think the bottom line is the NBA is going to be doing a little nail biting, as they say in the business, because they don't want Utah playing Milwaukee in the finals. I'm sorry. They just don't want that, just from a standpoint of eyes on the screen. Now, I want to get back to the West real quick, because you were asking about the weekend schedule. There is still some intrigue. Let's start with the 3 and 4 spot. The Clippers come into tonight 47-23. While Denver is 46-24, the Nuggets own that tiebreaker. Now, Denver's got to play at Detroit, the team that we always laugh about, but they've ruined a couple of seasons.
Go Pistons, yeah.
Yeah, then at Portland on Sunday. The Clippers go at Houston tonight, which I'll pencil in a W, and they're going to go at OKC. So what I'm saying is we could still see some shuffling right there, because you've got to think that the Clippers are capable and probably will win both those games, whereas Denver could potentially lose to Portland, who's playing for their playoff lives. Now, at the very top, Utah 50-20 heading into the weekend. Phoenix 49-21. The Suns own that tiebreaker, but the Jazz have maybe the best schedule you could ask for. At Oklahoma City and then at Sacramento, who basically threw away their season last night. And don't be surprised if you see like literally G League guys playing on Sunday. Meanwhile, Phoenix has to play at San Antonio twice. I wouldn't want to have to go back-to-back against a Greg Popovich coach team. So I think it's going to filter out where the Jazz end up getting the 1 seed, Phoenix is in the 2, but I'm not going to be completely shocked if the Clippers, maybe falter a little bit and Denver can move in there. And I guess, let me throw it back to you here, Chuck. I mean, we just started to see fans kind of sprinkle themselves back in. As far as home court advantage, last year we talked about in the bubble, there was no advantage. It's just quiet and squeakiness is all you heard. I think, though, depending on what part of the country you're in, you could have as much as half an arena filled up, and that's got to mean something at this point, because these guys have told us it means something to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned this last week that when we had Steve Kerr on one of our shows, Steve said that it's making a tremendous difference in the heads of the players having fans back in arenas. He said not having that phony sound, but actually having fans react to the plays has made a difference in guys' heads. And he said he can tell the difference with the players when things are going right. They're reacting differently on the court. And you're right. Now that the mask thing is changing and the CDC requirement, good heavens, if you want to know what's going on with the requirements around the country, you've practically got to stay with the AP Newswire on a minute by minute basis, because things are changing so crazily. And I mean, in a right direction, if for us all socially. I think we're going to see at least half full stadiums throughout the or arenas throughout the playoffs, which is fantastic. I'm really happy for fans because, man, how hungry are they? How hungry are they to get back in arenas? I mean, I think it'll be great. It'll be great for fans. It'll be great for players. So I think it will have some effect on the way teams are playing. By the way, one note on the Pistons. By the way, Dwayne Casey just got a 2-year extension. We all thought he was going to be gone. General manager says, no. He's been coaching wonderfully with young players under totally adverse conditions. He's staying. So I love Dwayne, and good for him.
Well, a little known story, the general manager is taking the points every time he's got the Pistons. So he's going to extend them to make sure they cover for Dwayne Casey and the Detroit Pistons. So come on, what else do you got to play for here? Let's make some money and run, right? Exactly.
There literally is a casino right across the street from Little Caesars Arena. So
a little levity on Friday the 14th. 15 days after my last shot, I'm feeling all bueno now. Now I get to travel a little bit and get to be back in stadiums among those fans, maskless or mask with masks still. We'll see how it goes. But I'll be interested in Mavs, Blazers, Lakers. That 6 seed is very important. The play-in tournament will be very important. Obviously, Atlanta, Miami, and New York, the difference between the 3 seed, playing the 3 seed versus a 4 seed versus a 4-5 matchup is completely different when you're talking about Brooklyn and Milwaukee. Go ahead, Casey. Had one more thing?
Well, I did want to just throw this in there because I mentioned the Sixers, and if you're going to get in on these, I mean, try and do it today if you can. I mean, they've moved down again. They were plus 375 when we talked on Monday, Vasu. Now they're 3-1 odds to win the Eastern Conference. The Nets, clearly Vegas thinks they're the best team because they're even money. It's 1-1 plus 100 if you want to bet them to win the East. Then the Bucks at plus 325. And really, if you're going to take a flyer, why not go with the defending conference champions? Miami Heat are 14-1. If that's not worth $20, I mean, I don't really know what is. That seems like a decent bet there. Now, out west, it's still, and Vasu, I asked you about this last week on the radio interview we did. It's the LA show and then everybody else. Lakers still at the top, plus 230 to win the West. Clippers plus 240. And then we get to the actual teams with the best records. The Jazz at 3-1, no respect. The Suns at 6-1, no respect. And then the Nuggets, who probably have the MVP, are at 12-1 to win the Western Conference. This is just crazy. And then last point before I throw it back to you, Vasu, I'm not comfortable right now betting an NBA final champion. I really don't know who's going to win the championship, or at least last year you had kind of a feel that it was LeBron's time to do it with AD. Nets plus 230. Lakers and Clippers will both get you 5-1. Jazz 7-1. Sixers 8-1. And then those sneaky Milwaukee Bucks will get you 9-1. This might be one where you have to actually watch a game or two in the first round before you actually put down your hard-earned money, Vasu.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting in terms of the NBA playoffs and finals. Obviously, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, they showed what they could do. The Sixers playing well. James Harden, we talked about this yesterday, in case you weren't there. James Harden with the Nets, since he's joined the Nets and with their big three, they've only played like 9 times together. Excuse me, James Harden is 25-8 with the Nets since they've joined. So if that's not a topic for MVP discussion right there, he clearly is the best passer amongst the three. He can score with anybody. Durant's like the 300 hitter we mentioned yesterday. He's like the 300 hitter. He gets out of bed and just hits 300 no matter what. Kevin Durant can drop 25 no matter how many games he misses because his jump shot is so pure. And then Kyrie Irving is not a pure passer. He scores and then he'll distribute when he has to, but he's not. And they've made the right decision getting James Harden, and it's evident in the record right now. And they don't all have to play together when they get to the playoffs. And I think that's why a lot of people are seeing that, and they're saying the Nets are still the best team. But Philadelphia's defense is really good, and they're going to have to figure out a way to – it's hard to shut one guy down, let alone 3. So that may be where everybody has their opportunities or their ideas in that. We're going to take a break here. We're going to hit baseball here pretty hard. Let me give you one update here. First game of the doubleheader. Chicago White Sox and Lucas Giolito, believe it or not, the Royals' 11-game losing streak. They are losing in the bottom of the 5th inning, 5-2 to the Royals. It's a 7-inning game. Remember, in the doubleheader, your boy Vasu here has the White Sox in game 1. It's a 7-inning game. So all of a sudden, I wish it was 9 innings, but we'll hope that there's a comeback for the White Sox here. But we'll be back in 30 seconds. A lot of baseball to talk about. The San Francisco Giants, Oakland A's, leading the baseball world in wins. Who would have thought that coming in? A lot of that and more as we come back to the Make the Money and Run podcast in 30 seconds. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Battle Party, Casey Free Left, Charlie O. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live and YouTube. I want to read a couple of comments here. Robbie, always watching. Stephanie Harris of Pondering Mics of Stables Media. Stephanie, we read the comments of your heart attack. Hope you're feeling better. The show is great. Glad you're feeling well, and thanks for the compliment on the show. But more importantly, get better, okay? That's the number one thing, get better. All right, so let's get back to that. You can hear her show on Wednesday nights, by the way, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock right here on stablesmedia.com. All right, Vasu, Casey, and Charlie here. Let's get to the National League as we start the games off. San Francisco Giants, best record in baseball. We'll get to the odds in a second. Let's get to the notes here. San Francisco Giants and the Oakland A's. Oakland A's, the best record in baseball. They took 2 out of 3 from Boston. Boston, a game back of them. They had a rough game. Sean and I had a rough game yesterday. I'm sure everybody knew that, but the fact they got 2 out of 3 in Boston, 2 close games. And Jake Diekman is your closer. Check your bingo numbers if you had Jake Diekman as your closer on May 13th right now. And then the A's have the best record. I don't have the records in front of me, but the Giants, best record.
23-10.
Well, I'm sorry?
23-10.
23-10. So Boston's 22-11. The Giants, I think, have 22 wins also yesterday. DeSclafani. Here's a note for you on DeSclafani, by the way. This is how much he's improved going from Cincinnati to San Francisco. He played in the NL Central last year. His whip was 2.8 against the Pirates last year, which was 22 hits and 6 walks in 10 and 2/3 innings against the Pirates last year. And he turned that around yesterday with a masterful performance for Pittsburgh. What a matchup in Milwaukee yesterday. Corbin Burns set the record for most strikeouts without allowing a walk to start the year. 51 was the record. He gets to 52 and then some. And then Jack Flaherty, the ace of the Cardinals, they still go in there and beat the Brewers 2-0. The Cardinals playing really, really well right now. Jack Flaherty, unbelievable pitcher for the Cardinals. And Zach Plesac in somebody else's shoes ends up nearly throwing a no-hitter last night against the Seattle Mariners. Kalenchik and Gilbert made their major league debuts, the top prospects for the Mariners last night. And how about those Toronto Blue Jays? They're in the roughest division, or in the past years, the roughest division with the Yankees, the Red Sox, Tampa Bay Rays, the American League champions. But they take the series from Atlanta. It might have even been a sweep. I forgot the middle game of that series. But the Blue Jays get 4 off Will Smith in the 9th and beat Atlanta in Atlanta 8-4. One of my picks yesterday. Again, right after the shot, 2 weeks. Mind is clear, making better picks. Check our podcast out. Absolutely. Toronto takes care of Atlanta yesterday, 8-4 in the morning session on the West Coast in the morning session. Baseball takes, Casey. What do you got?
Well, you got a whole lot of information there on the screen, and I appreciate that. A lot of things to talk about. I think if I'm Burns, I'm just a little bitter. I mean, how the hell can you be 2-3 with a 1.57 earned run average? Like, can you?
He's on the line with Jacob deGrom every day.
Yeah, as I was going to say, him and Jacob deGrom are probably have their own text thread just trashing the offenses of their teams. It's like, this is not acceptable. It's acceptable if you're an under better that you can bet on the under of the Milwaukee Brewers runs totals. Whenever Burns is on the mound is what it feels like is a trend there. But that is a pretty magnificent achievement, especially if you look at some of the guys that he passed to do that. So congratulations to him. I think the Brew Crew is going to be a team that makes some noise as we keep going. I'd say they're a little disappointing, just 2 games over 500, but I feel like a broken record sometimes, guys, because there still isn't that much separation. There's a lot of teams that are a couple games above 500, a couple games below 500, and then your basement dwellers, but we still haven't sorted everything out, which makes it really fun if you're a totals better, and especially if you bought those tickets before the season started. I live in Northern California, and I am very impressed by what the Giants did. I mean, I was taking shots at them in the offseason, and not just because I'm an A's fan, but 23-14, really playing good baseball. They've got a solid lineup top to bottom, and getting these wins out of guys like DeSclafani, it just spells a very good start to the season. Probably better than a lot of folks thought they were going to do. I know it's better than Las Vegas thought they were going to do. And taking a look at their upcoming schedule, I think they actually have an off day today, if I'm not mistaken.
Who are we talking about?
Oh, no, they're going to be at Pittsburgh today, aren't they?
Yes.
See. Yeah.
Yeah.
At Pittsburgh. So you've got, you'll have Gosman going this weekend, Cueto, and then Wood. So the Pirates are a pretty beatable team. They've kind of come back to earth a little bit. Two teams that I kind of liked with win totals in the offseason. Pittsburgh and Kansas City are starting to say, no, there's a reason why we set these numbers so damn low, and you're a fool for betting the over on these. But that's another story for another show. And then, Charlie, look, throw out the A's loss yesterday. They are getting elite level pitching and clutch hitting a la every second half they've had for the last 5 years. But this team it just looks a little bit different. I go back to what Matt Olson was saying in the preseason. This is the best team that we've had together. And as Vasu pointed it out, they're getting it done without even a legitimate closer. So perhaps for the first time in God knows how long, the ownership will go out and spend a little money, bring in a legit closer as they wait for the injury bugs to sort themselves out. But if you're a fan of either team in the Bay Area, you're just kind of walking on sunshine on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, it's been a while since the Bay Area had both teams playing this well together. Although they don't know where one team's going to play, but that's a whole nother issue. That's for my sports business show. But it's very interesting to see what's going on. The Giants, I mean, really, they have to be the most surprising team in baseball right now. Really are 7-3 in their last 10 games, plus 33 on the run differential. I mean, if you're a person out there telling me you saw this coming with the Giants, you're a liar. I'm sorry. You just are. Okay.
Well, they call me a liar. I didn't see this coming, but I saw a lot of it coming.
Yeah, but hey, listen, if you saw that coming, you could give me the winning numbers for the mega millions tonight.
I can't, then I won't win. I can't, then I won't win.
You didn't see this coming. I'm going to tell you that right now. I've known you a lot of years, and I'm telling you didn't see this coming. It's amazing. It really is. I mean, we thought it was going to be all Dodgers, all Padres. And I'm loving it because now it's Dodgers, Padres, Giants. So I think it's going to be a really entertaining division because I kept thinking, okay, the Giants are kind of a fluke. They're kind of a fluke. They're kind of a fluke. Well, you know what? They're not a fluke. So, as long as health stays there, and that's true for every team in baseball. As long as health stays there, that's going to be a really entertaining division. Oakland, yeah. I mean, Vasu and I talked about it yesterday. Diekman? Really? Diekman? I told Vasu when they got Diekman a couple of years ago, when he came in, I would close my eyes. I'd be in the press box closing my eyes going, why? Because I would just start writing my story. Diekman comes in, gives up runs, A's lose, and now the guy's closing and looking like a world beater. Okay, this is the story of the A's organization. They go out and find guys on the scrap heap, bring them in. They've always had great coaches who nobody knows about. They work things out with guys and they make things happen. And I said yesterday, if guys go down, they have such a deep minor league system, and they'll go all the way down to AA. They're not afraid to go to AA and pull guys all the way up to the majors because they have a system that's that deep. So it's very interesting in that way. But the whole thing this year, guys, in baseball is really fun. The White Sox are becoming the story that we thought. Cleveland being better than we thought they were going to be. And guys, I have such a heart for Cleveland. I'm from Ohio. There's no better fans in the world than Cleveland fans. And I want Cleveland to do so well. The Red Sox, really? I mean, did we see the preseason predictions for the Red Sox? Everybody read it except the Red Sox. And now the Yankees are doing well. The Blue Jays are doing well. We've got a competitive division there. I'm really excited about the way baseball is looking right now. So it's not only exciting to wager on, but it's just fun to watch.
Go ahead, Casey, before I have to defend myself.
Yeah, no, well, I want to talk a little bit more about the National League West here because I know we talked about the Dodgers. Okay, they're not going to win the 115 games or whatever. Who cares? They're going to win a lot of games. I think all three of us, both on this show and off the show, have discussed there's going to be points in this season when you have got to pounce on a team that's this good, and they're going to go on a win streak because they just got that losing out of their system. I feel like, terrible series in Milwaukee to end April, terrible series in Chicago, and then losing 2 out of 3 to the Angels. I feel like the Dodgers are a team that's about to go on a hell of a run, like an 8-2 over the next 10. They've got the 2 wins against Seattle. They come home, they get 3 against the Marlins, then 4 against the Arizona Diamondbacks before they head up to San Francisco in a game that may have some fan interest. I think people will probably show up for that one. But Vasu, as a guy who follows the Dodgers, probably the closest of the 3 of us, do you agree with that? Do you feel like they're ready to pounce? Their run differential is still fantastic. It's second best in Major League Baseball. They're due to go on a hot streak.
I agree with Trevor Bauer, who says we're the best team in baseball right now for the last 2 games. So, yes, I think that they're right there. Trevor Bauer is brilliant on Twitter. I love Trevor. We got the best team in baseball for the last 2 days. I love that from Trevor Bauer. So I'm going to defend myself here to Charlie right now because at the beginning, I didn't think the Padres were all that. I thought they were very good, and I thought they were going to be there. But everybody had them and their rookies and their young pitchers going after it. Melanson and the rest of the bullpen has clearly helped. But the Padres are 21-17, and yes, they've had injuries. But I really thought the starting rotation for the Giants, you get Alex Wood into a different situation. You get Jessica Feeney out of Cincinnati, and you get who's the other guy I'm thinking of on that staff right now? Aaron Sanchez, if he's healthy. He was on an ALCS competing team with Toronto 6 years ago. And their defense is so underrated right now, and that helps starting pitching. They're in rhythm. Their pitchers are playing well. They're not hitting the ball well at all right now. They're hitting in clutch situations. And the Giants right now, as I look at it, I have to correct myself here. By percentage points, the Giants have the best record in the entire baseball. 23-14. St. Louis is 23-15. And the A's are 23-16. White Sox are 22-13. Boston's 23-16. And the Mets, 18-13, lead the East over Philadelphia. They have less games played than the Phillies do. And then Milwaukee has 20 wins also. The Dodgers have 20 wins also. It's going to be a very interesting baseball season from the standpoint of these teams that are starting to play well. You kind of know who you are 6 weeks into it. And right now, the Giants know who they are. And for those people that don't know who these players are because they're not big popular fantasy baseball guys or rotisserie baseball for your old schoolers, they're names that can play. And Gossman, Wood, Cueto, Sanchez, and whoever else I'm missing or in the rotation has been really good for them. Their bullpen has been really good. The Giants are going to be tough. Dodgers go in next weekend. They're going to find out what kind of Giants team they have, what kind of team the Dodgers have going into next weekend into Oracle Park. And the Padres and the Cardinals are going to have themselves a weekend this weekend as well, too. By the way, for a promotion Saturday night on FS1, Cardinals-Padres. Padres won't see Jack Flaherty after yesterday, but it's going to be a great series for San Diego and St. Louis kind of matching up on themselves. They didn't have a really good playoff series last year. And then you look at the American League. I didn't think the Red Sox would be this good, but they can hit the ball, and they're plus 36 in run differential. Toronto is one who's kind of surprised me because their pitching is shaky. Steven Matz got off to a great start, but he's lost 2 in a row. His ERA has gone from like under 1 to about 4.5 now after getting beaten up. The Yankees are playing better because their defense is playing better. In the Central, Minnesota is terrible. Their defense is so bad right now that they can't, when they don't hit the ball, and they've got Miguel Sano at first base hitting, like Casey and I talked about last week, about 116 from your first base position, leaving runners on base. That's not going to help. I mean, Detroit's ahead of you, Minnesota. Come on now. That should tell you something right there. And Detroit's minus 64 in run differential. And then Houston starting to play better. Seattle kind of coming back to the pack. They've lost 5 in a row. And the A's, of course, playing well. They've got Minnesota this weekend. So this is a chance for the A's to beat up on Minnesota this weekend in Minnesota. The Giants are in Pittsburgh for 4 games. They've already won 1. They're going to go 4 for Cincinnati before they come home back to Los Angeles. And Cincinnati's kind of come back in the pack now, too, as they're in third place. They beat up on Pittsburgh, actually, and they're 17 and 18, a half game ahead of the Cubs, who don't know what their identity is between Bryant, Rizzo, and Baez right now as well, too. And then Arizona's playing a little bit better. They're 6.5 back, but Miami got them yesterday. So it's going to be a very interesting baseball season. We've got it all going on here. As we move on, let's talk about the games itself. Here are the games for tonight. The line, San Francisco, 2-1. When did you say San Francisco is a 2-1 road favorite ever? Even in their good years, I don't remember them being a 2-1 road favorite in their good years. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates. Milwaukee, Atlanta, good series right there as well. Colorado, Cincinnati. Colorado took it to the Reds yesterday. Got 11 runs before the Reds came back. Washington has Max Scherzer tonight, and then the Dodgers have Kershaw and Alcantara for the Marlins. 6.5 the total at night at Dodger Stadium on a Friday. Generally, those unders do come in on Friday nights at Dodger Stadium and Alcantara. If you haven't seen him, it's like the Giants staff. He's really good too, Casey.
It's going to be a good weekend. I think a lot of teams are playing teams that they'd like to play. And again, baseball is just pure chaos because everybody's still hovering around the Mendoza line. That's probably going to be the case for most of the first half of the season. And we can get back to baseball with the picks, but I know, Chuck, you mentioned right before we came on, talking a little bit about, horse racing, because the Preakness is this weekend, and the most watched horse maybe of all time will be there because Bob Baffert won't. So just real quick, guys, I brought up a story here. Medina Spirit, of course, tested positive for a banned substance. Just yesterday in California Superior Court, a bunch of guys got together and are suing Bob Baffert basically for a horse doping scheme is what they're calling this. And the gamblers in the lawsuit claim they bet serious money on the horse that finished second, Mandaloon. And if not for Baffert's dirty, dirty horse, they would have won a fortune. One plaintiff said he bet nearly $1,000 on Mandaloon, which went off at 26-1 odds. Another guy said he bet $2,000. So there you go. There's $50,000 that he couldn't win. Now, Charlie, I'm not a horse racing expert. I know controversies come up in the past, obviously, around the sport with the doping and the dirty play. But it's kind of interesting that I think a lot more of us will be watching the Preakness on Saturday than we would have had this whole mess not started.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, that lawsuit's not going to go anywhere because number one, they didn't strip the horses of the win. Okay, so that's going to be, and the only thing where doping gets any crazier is the Olympics. Okay, because in the Olympics, you take a cough drop, you're out. And horse racing's been the kind of same. And horse racing, that's always been the knock on horse racing, is because they've doped these horses up for years. Okay, I mean, if you don't think they don't shoot them with different things and stuff to keep them going, there's always been a knock on the fact that 3-year-olds are too young to run. Okay, I mean, I'm just being honest. And so there's been a lot of that stuff going on. So this thing with Baffert and everything else, phooey. If you watch the ponies, you know what this is all about. And people don't like Baffert because he's too successful. Okay, that's just the bottom line. The guy is the most successful guy in horse racing, and nobody likes him. He's a bit of an ego guy. If I had to give you an example, he's kind of the George Steinbrenner of horse racing. Seriously, he is. And so, he's the target. Okay, he's a target. Get over it. The guy wins. You want to go with the flow? Bet on his horses. He's going to make you a winner. Okay, that's the deal. So and if the Preakness, I mean, Maryland's got a pretty tough horse racing association. So does New York. And if they thought anything bad was there, that horse would not be running in the Preakness tomorrow. Okay. But what bothers me about the Triple Crown right now, and guys, I'm not a horse guy. Okay. I watch 3 races a year. I watch the Derby, I watch the Preakness, and I watch the Belmont. Okay. Just because I grew up about 120 miles from Louisville. So that we watch those races. Okay. That's it. But what bothers me now about the Triple Crown is it used to be you watched the Derby and then you knew who was going to run in the Preakness, and you watched the Preakness and you knew who was going to run in the Belmont. Now, you lost a few horses along the way every year, but there are only 2 horses running in the Preakness that ran in the Derby. You know what? I just suddenly lost interest. What happened to all those horses from Louisville? Really. I mean, the only other horse besides Medina Spirit that's there is Midnight Bourbon. Okay, so
love that name.
Oh, I know, I do too. But he's that horse actually has a chance tomorrow. Finished 6th, but had a little stumble out of the gate, and did a nice job in the backstretch and coming around. So is a bit right. 5-1 odds coming off tomorrow. So is there? I know you just said you don't know anything about horse racing. I do know a little bit, but it's going to be interesting. But I'm really losing interest, because if you're going to have a Triple Crown, then it's got to be the kind of thing of you enter the Triple Crown and you run all the races unless your horse gets hurt. And so if horse racing's had declining interest over the years, except for hardcores. for years and years and years. This is part of the reason why. This is like having a team that enters baseball for 162 games, but you only play the same guys for one series, and then you change the entire team for the next series.
Interesting takes on the horse racing, the Preakness. Bob Baffert, no surprise during the Churchill Downs pregame coverage. Mike Tirico had Bill Belichick and Baffert talking to each other, and so a lot of similarities between those two as far as whatever circumstances you want to talk about as well with that. All right, we've been flashing up the baseball lines up here, but right now, as we wind down our last 5 minutes, we're going to go right to picks here. And so, Casey, go ahead with your picks to start.
All right. Well, I'm 4-0 last week. Not a good start this week. 1-2 with my plays on Monday. Today, I'm going to be taking the Cubs and the Tigers to go over 9 with the return of Arrieta. And Detroit, even though they have a terrible run differential, they've actually been scoring a little bit over the last 4 or 5 days. A's Twins over 8.5. That could be all Oakland doing that. This could literally be 9-1 final because Minnesota freaking stinks. And the A's have cooled off a little bit yesterday, but generally hot. So those are my 2 baseball plays. In the NBA, going back to the well with the Memphis Grizzlies and an underplay against the Sacramento Kings. I don't even know who's going to be on the court, but I can assure you they're not the best basketball players on earth. They're the backups to the best basketball players. So under 223.5 for the Kings and Grizz, because Charlie's got me feeling feisty. If you're going to bet on any horse this weekend, you go with the 9 horse because his name is Risk Taking, and he's getting you 15-1. Risk Taking.
Nice.
To take down the
Nice tie-in, Casey. Very nicely done. Go get him, Charlie. What do you got?
All right, here we go. I went 2-1 yesterday. I was good in baseball, and I sucked at the NBA because that's what I do. Let's see. Vasu, did you bring mine up there?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it on here.
Hang on here. There we go. I've got the Cubbies minus 135 over Detroit. Just because it's Detroit. Okay. So it's like a giant target. I am going to, if you remember yesterday, I told you the only time that I bet on a game in Colorado is if I'm taking the over under, and true to my word, I am taking the over in the Cincinnati Colorado game, not con game. Although it may be a con game, that may be a slip of the tongue there. I'm taking the over. It's over 10.5 in that game, even though Wade Miley is the starting pitcher for Cincinnati. His pitchers aren't going to work there because it's in Denver. So there you go. And then the Cleveland-Washington game, I'm going to take the Wizards minus 8.5 because the Wizards have something to play for. And remember, I told you to start watching the lineups in these last final games. Kevin Love is out, and and Cleveland is 1-11 in their last 12 games. So that's there. Finally, I am going to make a pick in the Preakness, and I am going with Midnight Bourbon.
Midnight Bourbon. I like that. All right. So anyway, we wind up the show here. My picks, I've only got 3 picks right now. That Golden State pick, I'll have to look later. But if they're only 1 at home against New Orleans without Zion Williamson, it's going to be interesting. The Brewers and Braves, former compañeros, shall we say, for lack of a better word, the Milwaukee Braves are now the Atlanta Braves, and the Milwaukee Brewers playing each other. I like when they get together. It's a good matchup. The Brewers are playing well right now. Atlanta's starting to round into form. The over 7.5 with Drew Smyly and Adrian Hauser. Some offense tonight. The Braves offense starting to kick it into gear. The pitching not been great, as evidenced by Toronto the last few days. And I'm going to take the Philadelphia Phillies tonight. I know they're struggling a little bit, but Vinny Velasquez, rematch of the 1993 World Series. I was in college, Charlie, when they played each other in the World Series. 1993. Casey didn't even know what a parlay was in 1993. Maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. Plus 145 on the Philadelphia Phillies tonight. And then pending bet on the Golden State Warriors. Check our social media out if we have any additions or anything to add onto our weekend list of games. It's going to be a fun weekend. Obviously, the Preakness and everything that goes with that. Major League Baseball, the NBA winding down the regular season. You catch us Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, Facebook and YouTube. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, by the way. Comments, Stephanie and Robbie as well, too. Download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Apple and Spotify seem to be the best, but anywhere you get them, you can download, subscribe, rate, and review. Let us know. That's going to do it for us this weekend. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. Casey and Charlie here. Make the Money and Run podcast. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.